Welcome to my podcast, Actual Leigh. This is the continuation of last week's conversation. Let's dive right back in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so weird. Like
they
I
probably
don't
think she's a Satanist too. Like, oh, only satanic people have tattoos.
Yeah, the bias is, like I sometimes have wondered if I've run into that with and not known because I'm not good at picking up on that kind of shit. So,
Now
you
I'm
know,
thinking about it too. I'm like, shit,
yeah.
because I have a giant like prison tat on my arm, and now I'm like, shit, have people been treating me differently because of that?
Did you say prison?
Yeah, dude. Like,
Is it
I
a prison? Is it of a prison or you got it in prison?
it's a, I mean, you would call it a prison tat. It's like homemade, and it's humongous.
Oh, okay, it's just a homemade one.
It's a whole fucking story about how I got this too. And like I did it myself, and it's as ugly and sketchy as you would anticipate it. But yeah, man, like if you ever want to know the story, I can tell you, but it's
Yeah.
going to take a minute. It'll be a block of text or a 5 minute long, run on for me. But yeah, now I'm like, shit, dude, do people really do that? Like,
Yeah,
what?
I mean it's I they I yeah, I remember learning about racism and the subtle ways that people express their racism, like the example that I saw, and this was like I was much younger, was like a lady, like a white lady on a elevator, and then a black dude gets on and she like, you know, and it
Shrinks
was
away?
just, yeah, and had not I knew about racism and I had learned about it like in relation to like photography and like visual media, but my brain doesn't work that way, like in terms of like I don't look at other people who look different than me and think that I go they might have like some cultural differences if they're from another continent or something or
Sure.
from another state, but because they have different skin color, like that doesn't whatever, right?
Right.
So it like changed my behavior when I went into public for a while, where I was like watching for this behavior in other people because it like
Really?
broke my brain. I was just like, people do that? Really? But then I also like felt like bad for anybody that might have ever experienced that. Like,
Yeah.
where I really didn't want people to experience that. So I'd get like if I was in a situation, a similar type of situation, I'd always say hello. I started saying
Right.
hello to everybody,
Yeah.
like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah. What's up, dude?
Um, because and then I was like, wait, am I doing a bad thing by like opposing that? By like, I was like, I don't know, I
Yeah.
just eventually I just stopped and I just went back to being normal because I'm always obviously comfortable. And if they say hi, I say hi. And, it's not, I mean, I'm also known for randomly just telling people stuff like, I'll be
I
like,
do the same.
oh, this funny joke, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
and
Right.
they look at me weird when they walk off the elevator. So and I'm like,
Fuck it.
whatever. You're going to be thinking about me for days to come because that
That's
was weird.
exactly. You'll never forget this experience now, will you? I will, because this is every day, but
Yeah.
I'll always be in your mind. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. It's so like, so those biases, I won't be aware of them until somebody like points it out. And then I'm like looking and, just being like, oh, it breaks my brain. So right now I am more aware of like how I might be perceived for my tattoos. Or I mean, I know when I started getting tattoos, my mom is like, well, you're not going to be able to get a job. And it never was a problem. So
I'm gonna
I
be
had
honest.
one
Like,
place that didn't hire me because of my tattoos, and I didn't want to work there anyways because they wanted me to wear khakis. So
it's fucking hilarious, dude. I don't care about the tattoos, bro, but I draw the line at khakis. Like, no,
right.
go fuck yourself. Like, no, we're not doing
I'm,
that. No.
I'm like, y'all want me to climb underneath desks to build out networks, and you want me to wear fucking khakis, but you're worried about the tattoos in my ears, bitch. Like,
Right? That's
yeah,
I wouldn't want to work for a company that's going to take superficial stuff like that seriously anyways. Like,
exactly,
obviously we have a difference in values, and your values just as a business aren't my values. And I'm good,
exactly.
you know?
Yep.
And
And I was very lucky early on. I worked for an attorney and I just kind of like I learned one thing and I learned more, I learned more, I learned more. But I had like a shaved head, I had my nose pierced, and this was like not this is post-punk era, pre-alternative, right? So this was not like a thing that you would expect to see. And he would occasionally have clients come in who would be like, well, I don't want her working on my stuff because of the way she looks or whatever. And he'd just straight up be like, she's the reason why when we go to court, those 6 boxes for your like 10-year divorce are
Hmm.
organized and easy for me to find what I need. She's good at her job. She can look however she wants. And that established it for me. I was
Yeah,
like, okay, if that dude, this like old guy with his fancy Porsche and nice house and all that shit can accept me, everyone else fucking has to as well. Like,
yeah. I mean, he can do it. Why can't you?
yeah,
And dude, good on him for standing up for you too. You know,
yeah,
that's a type of consideration and a respect that I don't think you can find very often. At least I haven't in my
yeah.
experience. You know, but yeah, dude, like you are what, a legal assistant, like a clerk,
I was
or
like a filing clerk, but then I also did running and I started doing their billing because his wife was from Germany, so she would like travel a lot to go see family. So then I would do the billing and I just kind of, yeah,
just ended up running the whole office. So yeah, he's smart to keep you around and not, you know, burn that
yeah.
bridge. Be like,
I
oh,
did daycare. I watched his kid for him too. Like when his wife would go out of town, they would pay me and they'd let me because I didn't have a car, they'd let me use the her van and I would go pick him up at like 5 in the morning. And the thing, like I'll have to find some of the photos, but they lived up on the hills in Runner Park. We call it Rodent Parks. And it's like up there and it looks down on, like the cities in that area. So like Rohnert Park, Santa Rosa and stuff, and the ocean fog comes in, we're like 40 miles from the ocean, but it still comes in. So in the morning, at
right.
like 5 in the morning and the sun is coming up, it looks like the ocean, the fog sitting over these cities. And
Really?
you could just see the sunset or sunrise and the like all the colors. And then there's like this fog layer and it just looked like water. It is so magical. It's like I hate getting up early in the morning, but for that, it was absolutely worth it.
Dude, that sounds baller. Like I would have just stayed up all night anyways, but you know, yeah, dude, like that sounds sick. Like I'm in the Midwest. It's flat. Everything is flat till you get to the river, and then it's a little less flat.
Yeah, no,
And
there's none of that here. I mean, if you go to the middle of the state, you get flat. That's where the agriculture is. But
right,
this area, it's all like, it's different types of agriculture. Because I mean, all of California for the most part is agriculture. But
sure.
it's just cows and chickens and vineyards. Vineyards love hills, so we've got lots of those. And
Oh yeah.
yeah,
See,
yeah.
the cows and the corn and the chickens. Did you say you have corn there? We have corn here because I'm in Illinois.
There's probably corn, but in like private farms rather than like big farms, right?
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I mean, farming and agriculture anymore has gotten so weird where there for a while, uh, companies were paying farmers not to grow corn. Like, and so it used to be a whole lot of corn. But yeah, it's a running joke, you drive this road, it's just cornfields for as long as you can see. And then you could always smell when you're hitting the pastures. You'll smell it long before you go
Yeah.
there.
Oh
But
yeah, God, the middle of California, like there were a couple of times in the middle of summer, it's like 110, 115 degrees and it's that like dry heat and it's
uh,
like the um the cow you've got like 100 plus miles of just stench. And if you're on the motorcycle, you can't even recycle the air, so you just fucking
right.
taste it, right? You're just
And it's
like,
just hanging around in the helmet, and it's just like, oh my god, this is awful.
yeah, it's so epic. And then when you get a little bit north of where the cows are, then you get to where all the fertilizer and stuff is,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's even worse. It's
Oh yeah.
like it's like moist, just
Ugh.
hanging out there, and you're like, this doesn't seem right. But like towards the coast, you get like other stuff like almonds. There's like an area that has a lot of
Oh
garlic
yeah.
and and then we also have like the salt areas. So there's a lot of salt collection at certain times of the year or every couple of years or something because it's like on a it'll be like they'll collect it and then it's just like marshland and then the salt comes back and they collect it again. It smells weird. Um,
That's
but the
wild.
area that I'm from is like chickens and cows, lots of dairy. And then as the years have gone on, the vineyards have taken over. So there's a lot of that as well. Like, and
I blame.
I'm not impressed with any of that money.
Oh no.
And the drunk drivers that it inspires.
Oh yeah. I mean,
But you can get some amazing steaks. So, that's like anywhere that's got cows, you're
oh
gonna get the
yeah.
good steaks.
See, I worked at a slaughterhouse for 2 years. I mean, it's a beef processing facility. It's
Whatever. It's a
it's a sla
slaughterhouse.
yeah, it's a slaughterhouse. I
We
didn't
used
work
to
on.
live, we used to live across the street from one, and the cows, like, you could tell when they're stressed because they make a different
Their
sound,
moo
right?
is different.
And
It's a lot longer
yeah,
and stuff.
and then this one day it was real quiet, and we were like, why is it so quiet? And then we just heard like a normal moo. And I was like, they're gonna come get us now. That was a sign. It's
Yeah,
time. Revenge is nigh.
it's
Like,
Animal Farm, dude. Time to go. Did they have rendering at that plant? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, so because when you first start working there, like when you go to do like I had to go there to do the application and then finalize the process to get hired. The first couple months, it's awful, unreal, and you have to go there like 4 in the morning, right? And you hear the moves and but like they also had rendering at that plant. So
What is
rendering also
rendering?
rendering is where they take like all the fat, all the bones, all the blood, and they render it. They boil it down.
Okay.
Okay, and
That's gonna smell weird.
oh, it's a it's a distinct smell,
Mhm.
and you never really forget it. You'll be able to pick it up right away. You're like, oh, that's rendering. But yeah, but after like 7, 8 months, you don't even notice it anymore. I don't know if it ever got to like I don't think it ever got so bizarre that it became comforting or anything. It just became something you almost become nose blind to. But yeah, man, those first couple months, it's whoa. And
Yeah.
I know that sound. My
Yeah.
friend of mine is like, yeah, they start mooing like that about a mile out because they can smell the death or whatever. And I'm just like, that's really fucked up. Why would you say that, dude? Like, that's
But it's true. It's
yeah.
true.
And
It's
it's like,
crazy.
I mean,
I don't like I have like such like we the food it's necessary. We've
mhm.
evolved to eat this way. And I just think that the animals deserve the best quality of life. That's where my
Sure.
values go into it. It's not so much that like saying that like killing animals for food is bad is to me like an expression of fear of death, right? It's saying death is bad. So it's more about quality of life, and I think
Hmm.
that's what we get wrong. I used to raise rabbits for meat to feed one of my cats, and I spoiled the shit out of those rabbits, and I made sure they
Yeah.
were super relaxed on the day of, and I cared about them, but I also
Yeah.
respected what their role was, and it was a whole thing. I hated it when a dispatch didn't go well. I felt terrible that I didn't give them a good death.
Yeah.
And
And
just,
I think people get, I don't think it's wrong to view the practice of, cattle farming and, you know, uh, beef processing, stuff like that. I don't think it's wrong to feel very strongly about it. Like, I think that, we should be, you know, uh, considering, all of these things that maybe earlier generations weren't thinking about. Do they actually experience like anxiety? Are they stressed from doing this? And I think that um, to take a position where it's like we shouldn't eat meat at all or whatever, I think that's super privileged, and I have a lot of issues with those
yeah.
ideas. I mean, some people just don't have the ability to go all vegan or pescatarian, and some people just have dietary restrictions where they just can't do that. Um,
Yeah.
that being said, I understand the humane arguments about,
Hmm.
and I do recognize that, we as humans, we farm and process way too many cattle, like, and it's created a huge issue with our climate. I know that, and but I think we can split those hairs. I think we can have, ethical and humane and responsible farming for those things, and still, have, meats, beef.
Yeah.
Like, you know, um, I can tell you that when I was there, USDA was on plant floor all hours. So we didn't run any cattle or do anything on Sundays. That was usually the day off for most of the processing and most of the kill side. That's what they called it. I
Hmm.
think they called it something else, but everybody just called it kill floor, uh, which is kind of fucked up now that I think about it. But most of the time on Sundays is the maintenance guys would come in and fix stuff. Uh, but we didn't have cattle on those days off. Like, we would empty the pens, and there's always people attending to the cattle, making sure they're fed, making sure they're in clean conditions to some degree. They don't just throw them in some cage and just leave them there. And
Right.
I know that while it's still kind of fucked up to think about killing something to eat it, they use the guns now, and that's supposed to put them down real quick. They don't feel anything.
Yeah.
We should maybe address the stress that goes on if they're feeling, the stress and anxiety and stuff. Like I said, we can do this humanely and ethically and still get,
Yeah.
meat and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I find the argument for vegetarianism and veganism being environmental kind of um iffy because they only focus on beef, which beef,
mhm.
of course, part of the reason why it's a problem is because the cows create so much methane.
Yeah.
Um, but if you actually look at like the environmental impact of, say, chicken that is not fed soybeans that are taken from the rainforest area,
Hmm.
they're actually have less of an environmental impact in the vegetarian diet or using tofu. So,
Right.
because tofu being from soy and is predominantly sourced from these areas where they cut down the rainforest and it has like this huge environmental impact to be like shipping it around. And nobody talks about it. They all go, oh, well, any meat is bad, beef, beef, beef. And they completely ignore the fact that chicken is actually, as long as their feed is sourced
Hmm.
from anywhere but there, is actually more environmentally friendly.
See, and it's like
They
I
like they always they intentionally manipulate by focusing on the bad thing and
mhm.
ignoring all the other facts.
See, and I mean, that's almost another topic I was just thinking about, ethics and PETA and all that. But now I've derailed my thought. Um, I think they get caught up in the emotional argument rather than looking at things in a realistic sense. I don't want to dog on vegans because, like,
Yeah.
or
Well, it's
vegetarians and
not
stuff.
because it's not about the vegans or vegetarian. It's not about the people choose the lifestyle. It's about the people who are invested in promoting the lifestyle, usually for monetary reasons. They're the ones that are manipulating people by doing the misinformation thing of like
Hmm.
pointing people towards the convenient thing instead of just kind of being honest about it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, because it benefits them financially. It's not about, the people who choose the lifestyle that lecture other people and use that reasoning and are ignorant. I have a problem with them because they're being ignorant and they're spreading it. But the people that I have lots of friends that are vegetarian or vegan and stuff and that are realistic about it and they know that
Absolutely.
it's a privilege and you know um and that's I tell whatever you want to do is fine. It's just be realistic about it, and
Yeah.
actually like most of the people I know that are vegan stopped after a couple of years because they couldn't maintain their health.
Yeah.
um because they didn't go to full meat, but they started having eggs and stuff.
Yeah. I, I mean, again, I think it's I don't think it's a bad thing to want to be responsible and not just like, kill things. And that, we should, if we're gonna, slaughter a thing to eat it, we need to be considerate of it, you know.
Yeah.
And it's weird that they always go to beef because pigs are way smarter. Like
Yeah.
they have like the intelligence of what, like a 3-year-old child or something like that. Pigs are very
Hmm.
smart and they're very aware, and I don't know about cattle, but I don't think they're that aware, are they? I don't know.
They're not as much so. They're funny animals like cows are. They're
Uh,
so curious, like, but they're at the same time, they'll like lick fire kind of thing because they'll be like, "What's that?" Oh,
uh,
but
and
yeah, and the whole
it,
pig farming thing is scary though. Like the way that they've been bred to have like such shitty immune systems, and like
mhm.
they actually bred them to change the meat color so that they could like market them as the other white meat and all this other shit. And it's like I just like,
See, this is where the ethics thing comes in. Like
yeah.
we can still have the thing, but we just got to be ethical about it. Like,
Right. It's like the way that everything is about like maximizing profits. I'm like, you're already making money. Stop. Like you don't need to fuck things up by to make more money. Just stop.
yeah,
Like
it's become their heroin or their meth. Like this is what they're addicted to. And like
yeah.
again, I don't have a problem with a business making a profit. That's fine, you know, but when it comes at the expense of other people, that's where I
Right.
have a problem with it. You know,
Right.
I we could have a whole discussion about ethical billionaires and is that even really a thing? I don't think it's.
Yeah, I don't think yeah.
And
No.
I'm iffy on millionaires too. I'm gonna be honest with
Yeah.
you because all that accumulation of wealth comes at the expense of the cost of other people and their well-being, and you know, generally at their harm. You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I
No,
feel like
I
this.
tell you.
I feel like in the second half, we're just gonna piss everybody off, and they're all gonna come for us, man.
Probably not based on like the people I know that listen. I mean, maybe there'll be some other new people that listen and be like, screw those people, and then they just
Ah,
won't listen again. It's fine. But I
fuck that
like
guy.
I am not subtle about my opinions on the world. And my
See,
values are very like, I get super irritated with people who like boil down every problem to capitalism because capitalism isn't inherently the problem.
no,
It's, it's abusive capitalism. It's like the greed gene. It's humanity that's the problem. The system itself is just being abused. It's,
yeah,
like everybody always focuses on again the symptom or whatever, and then they like, and I'm like, it's not like wanting to have a profit, wanting to have enough. It's like it's the excessiveness.
yeah,
It's immoral. It's not, and it should be regulated. Instead, it's the opposite. It's
yeah.
it's like applauded, it's rewarded to be a sociopath. It's like, you know,
And that's the problem. Like, I can understand. Like, I don't feel like capitalism is inherently unethical or wrong, or immoral. Uh, I mean, Marx, for all of his talking, he was talking about, regulated capitalism where the consumer goes to who takes care of them, that type of thing. I'm really grossly stating this, but what, like you were saying, it's been perverted to the point where,
I
it
think it's
barely,
not capitalism anymore. It's beyond. It's like we're it's based on a capitalist system. We have these ideals that are sort of like injected into our society based on some bullshit that fairy tale that we tell ourselves about the formation of this country. It's all fucking bullshit. And
yeah,
it's like a bunch of fucking rich guys wanted to have control over the fucking money, so they came over here and took control. It wasn't about like making it fair for everyone. I mean, give me a fucking break.
yeah.
Um, but like it it's like whatever's happening now, it isn't capitalism really anymore. It's like it's just bad. It's
Yeah,
I don't even know what the word is, but it's like it's been completely perverted. It's
yeah. And like I also think that there's validity to say that we can participate in a system and still be critical of the system too. I just wanted to put that out there. I have no idea if that's even related. It just popped up in my head. But
Yeah.
it is,
I think it's important to be critical of a system that you're participating in. Otherwise, it does this.
yeah. And, if we can't be critical and, you know, critique our systems and, point out the problems and issues, why would they ever get solved? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's
Right.
like, uh,
That's like
but
the self-awareness thing that we're talking about earlier. If you're not self-aware, you have to be critical. Like you have to be self-aware enough to be critical of things in order to foster change. And things don't get better if you don't have that outside perspective to, look at things critically.
exactly. And, I mean, God, this could be a whole ass thing. Uh, you know, I think that we know how businesses, how companies are going to behave in anticipation. They're not going to worry about, their ethics, their morals is a very different one from the society, right? For them, accumulation of wealth is the goal. That is what is moral to them. That is, and so everything is influenced and descends from there. We know that we should have systems in place that can challenge and keep those things in check because we can all agree that harm is bad and that,
Right.
uh, companies shouldn't be allowed to do, uh, just whatever at the expense of everybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Well,
and like,
it's like the shitification, right? Like of the internet and the way what really solidified it was that these companies who initially started out small and slowly just took over and exploded with this new technology, they went and lobbied to make laws so that other small companies could not get a share, so that they dominated. And like that's the shit that there should be systems in place because we know that the greedy people are prone to monopolizing
mhm.
and and instead like they're like, oh, we have laws against monopolizing, but we're not going to really enforce them.
Yeah,
Like,
there's no point in having a law if it doesn't have teeth. Like a
right.
law that isn't enforceable is a fucking useless law. There's like no point. This is just lip service.
Exactly.
And like it blew my mind because I did go to college for a little while and I did study business. And it blew my mind to think that there's actually different forms of monopoly, right? I thought it was just, we own all of, the widgets or whatever. But no, man, like there are different types of monopoly where it's like one company owns all the ways to make the widgets, right? They own all the materials you need to make it, all the, and it just blew my mind. I was like, wow, and
Yeah.
this is the thing is that, and we can craft laws and, be prepared for this. Their goal is always going to be the accumulation of wealth. They're going to get more and more creative in how they skirt around the laws, the rules and stuff. But again, we can be prepared for that too.
Right.
Like, and you were just talking about, the tech and how when they got it, they hurried up and shoved everybody out of the way so the little guys couldn't come in. Because God forbid there be competition. Oh no, you
You're
know.
right.
And I feel like we've made this mistake with AI for sure, specifically, because it's like maybe it's just because the bureaucracy or whatever. And I know bureaucracy sucks, but especially nowadays I can recognize that there's a use for bureaucracy to a degree. Um, but it's like it takes so long to get our heads around new technology from like a government standpoint. By that time, technology grows so fast and companies form so quickly and shore up defenses to make sure that they have the monopoly, they got the corner on it. It almost comes back to bite us,
Yeah.
where we're completely unprepared to deal with you know the consequences of a technology like AI. Are we really ready for what it's going to be? you know and we gotta have some we gotta have some hustle on that. I understand bureaucracy and I
I mean, we haven't even really done the legwork on the laws around social media and the tech that's been around for a while now. I think AI is
Absolutely.
gonna, and it's already being abused to such an extent, and there's like no, it just it drives me bonkers. It's just there's just no like oversight. There's no accountability. There's no like, and I know that there are some groups that are AI is more like, in flux, but there are groups looking at but like scams and stuff like that. There,
Mhm.
the groups that are trying to help like manage that, but it's like it's like the tech was built and people there's always the people who are going to take advantage
Mhm.
to make money, and honestly I don't even think it's necessarily the easiest way. They just prefer to do the work that way. But then like we haven't really put the money into building the tech to counteract that, so there's like these
Yeah.
small groups that are trying to do it and making some headway, but it's like they're so far behind, like because the scammers make so much more money, they can put so much more resources into building out this technology, and AI is just it's a perfect tool for them.
Yeah. And I mean, especially those, uh, God, what do they call it? Uh, the learning modules, they have a term for it, where it's basically crowdsourced problem solving, right? So the more people use, this type of AI, the better it gets at mimicking language and being able to respond in realistic ways. Uh, and by having a bunch of people interact with it, by giving it like a free, what do they call it, like shareware or whatever, right? By having it
Hmm.
free and anybody can use it and stuff, it just almost like that's better because it can learn from a bigger pool. And, right now, AI is getting harder and harder to detect. You were talking about scams and, fraud and stuff. I think there's also issues about, at some point, AI is going to be able to create like accurate, realistic nudes of people and create, basically pornography of people without their consent,
Hmm.
right? And I think it's a lot sooner than we think it is, and
Yeah, it's within the next few years for sure. Because I mean, the stuff Photoshop can do is off the hook. So,
yeah, and it's
yeah.
like, and it's cool, but it's also like, but the weight of having these things is being responsible and recognizing future issues. And I feel like the whole nudes thing, that's not even my original idea. I heard Jimmy Snow talk about it, and just giving credit where
Yeah.
credit is due. But uh,
I mean, there's other stuff like when you Google search, a lot of times the top results are basically websites that were scraped together based on your search. They're not like real websites, and it will be like, oh, well, here are the like top 5 items based on this thing you were looking for, but it's not real. It was all like, they just use scripts and basically AI shit to create these websites to get you to click on them so that they get ad revenue. And people don't realize that those websites aren't being made by real people. They're not, there's like not a person looking at it and verifying that any of this data is true. The data is just being compiled from like Amazon reviews or whatever, and it's all bullshit. And it's like I hate it. It's so hard to like you have to go to like the third page to find like real reviews anymore, And it's like and there's stuff like that all over the place, but that's like the easiest example. I know there's like issues with AI books on Amazon, and there's the fake, like all the fake jobs on the job market and shit like that. I mean, there's just so much noise on the internet now
mhm,
that is unnecessary because of everybody trying to get their pennies for clicks and shit like that. And
mhm.
it sucks. Like I miss the days when you would search for stuff and nobody had made that website yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like that Bo Burnham song, right? Where he talks about, this was, recipes and chat boards and shit like that. Like, I mean, I'm really speaking out of school because I grew up sort of in the booming area, or era of the internet. Like, I was just like 12 when things get here and we start having stuff like AOL and stuff, it's already, way bigger everywhere else, like, on the West Coast,
Yeah.
because we're literally in the center of the country. So by the time something gets to us, it's old news for everybody else. Uh,
Right.
and so I was like 12 when AOL started getting, like, that was when they started like sending out those free CD-ROMs like all the time. And everybody was just using those free CD-ROMs for it. So I was like right at the end of message boards and having websites just, there really weren't websites. Like I never really got super into the internet anyways. It always seemed super overstimulating and overwhelming to me. I remember my dad told me, you know, that's the cool thing about the internet, man, is like you can go anywhere, you can find anything. And I'm like, then there's no reason for me to do any of this. It's like it's too much power. I have no interest in it anymore, because it's like there's no, direct pathway or goal because, I don't know. But it was also super limited. It's not like it is now where you truly can find everything you want to know and more, right?
Yeah.
Things you didn't even know you wanted to know, you'll see.
Right. And things
And
you didn't want to know. And
yeah,
yeah. Well, God, yeah. I remember when the World Wide Web was first kind of being a thing. And I was at somebody's house and they loaded it up and I just was like, no. Like I like, okay, so like with DOS and when Windows 3.1 came out, that was like you load it from DOS. And then there was like I can't remember which version of Windows it was that it just loaded straight into Windows when instead of loading DOS first. But I was like mad about that because it was like visual. So I just stayed in DOS. Like even with
right.
Windows NT, I just used DOS most of the time to do stuff. But eventually they made it where you can't use DOS that way. But I was like, oh, the World Wide Web is like visual based now. The normies are going to use it, right? They're just going to ruin
Yeah.
it. And that's exactly what happened. And I was just
Yeah.
like, so I like, I used a couple of things, but I wasn't super into it because it felt too mainstream like right away. And I kind of have this aversion to that. But there were like,
Yeah.
the thing that I always loved about being online was being able to connect to people that I would never be able to connect with in any, like even when I
Yeah.
was on the BBSs, like we could use the email system and the emails would bounce from system to system, but I could email with people in like Australia and stuff. Might take a week to get there, but it was so cool. Like it was just
Yeah.
such a neat a neat thing, and it didn't cost any money because it was bouncing locally until until that last there was like one of the networks they had people paying in, so it paid for the big jump to Australia. But like so that part I loved like the social part of it early on, but that also got ruined. I mean, I still get to meet cool people, but it's like the noise that's out there is so disappointing, you
Yeah.
know? The like I don't know, the disconnect and the negativity that people put towards other people. Like somebody is having a moment of joy and people are like, "Oh, you're such a loser." And I just don't get it because that person might be doing something I would never do because it's not joyful for me, but they're having joy,
Yeah.
And then all the liars, all the people like I've seen these videos where people take other people's videos and edit it to make a story and then post it like it's their story and it's like about cats and you could tell because it's a cat that looks similar but it's not the exact same cat and people don't realize that it's just heavily edited fake shit and I'm like why like you
Yeah.
know
It's Yeah, it's like the internet has been one of our greatest for humans. No, I'm not taking credit for it, but it's been one of the greatest human inventions. And yet, I also feel like it's going to be a big factor in our eventual downfall, right?
right
Because it was
right
like it got so big so quickly that we never really. It's like people weren't gonna look at what this is and what it could be, and think a little bit ahead. And
yeah it got big and got adapted before anyone could really even get used to it or like register what was happening. It's like it's been and then it's been distorted too. It's been completely like fucked up all in that time. It's so quickly, like just the thing I keep talking about this, but like the censorship of words online. Like one of
Okay.
the things that was great about the internet was that you had this freedom of speech, right? And there was
Mm-hmm.
this freedom of like sharing thoughts and stuff like that. And now like you can't say words like suicide. You have to say unalive. You can't say like sexual abuse. It's like you have to say SA. And like but on TV, you can watch like fucking USA or whatever. They say fuck and bitch and all the stuff that wasn't allowed on TV. So it's like they flipped the
Yeah.
rules, right? And I'm like, to me, like the thing that's been established is like in psychology is that it's very important to use the words for things. And the words that are being censored the most are words around serious things like
Yeah.
suicide. We should be able to have a conversation around that, whether or not we're grieving because we've lost some of that way or somebody is going through that kind of challenge. Same thing for any kind of abuse or whatever. The fact that we have to tiptoe around these things by being careful with the words means that we're not engaging directly with it, and that's unhealthy. And
Absolutely.
it like it's like so cringy that the internet has become this place where you have to like be careful about real healthy conversations, not
Yeah.
even like, it's like one thing to be like, okay, well, don't verbally abuse people, but people verbally abuse people and get away with it all the time, but
Yep.
don't fucking talk about suicide.
Yeah. And it's almost like they don't even need to create this arbitrary, censorship concept. They can just have the algorithm do it. Like,
Right.
and just use people sort of pearl clutching as their sort of guide. Like,
Exactly. That's
and
exactly what they're doing. You get like two or three noisy people being like, oh, my feelings are hurt and I can't regulate my emotions. So therefore, everybody else should control their behavior. And then the
yeah.
rules are based on that.
And
Like,
it's like, it's not my fault that, other people are offended at the word penis. Okay. But that's
right.
what it is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, I'm sorry, Deborah, that you can't handle, hearing the word, cock or whatever. But that's how adults talk and that's how everybody else talks. So maybe
Yeah.
you change your filters to, not have that or whatever you got to do
Yeah.
instead. But you got to have, I mean, we were kind of talking about this before. It's like it doesn't stop with them. They have to make everybody else feel and have the same rules and stuff. And
Yeah,
it's
it's like
just,
they have to control everybody instead of controlling themselves. Like there are things I don't like. So I filter those words
mhm,
on social media wherever I can. If I see that content, I say I'm not interested. I do not engage with it. I do not watch it, right? Because that the algorithm goes, "Oh, you like it."
right,
And people are like, why do I keep seeing this? Don't comment on it, you idiot. Like, I'm sorry, I name called, but it's so
right,
stupid. Like, if you engage with content, you will see more of it. That is how the algorithm works. Don't like it. You say not interested and don't look at it, ignore it. Right.
right.
It just, and I even before there was the internet where you could like control this stuff, if there were things going on that made me uncomfortable, like certain types of conversations or whatever, I'd be like, I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to leave. You guys keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah,
It's not, I don't want to control other people. I just
exactly.
don't want to be uncomfortable. That's all.
Ex- it's like I'll just show myself out, have fun,
Yeah.
whatever. But
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it hurts my brain because people, like a few sensitive people, end up representing the whole. And my experience has been when you talk to most people are not actually as offended by things as that small group makes everyone think, right?
yeah,
And because social media and then the media outlets and stuff have like been sort of like learned that they can get clicks by using the extreme emotions and stuff like that. It's like those people are getting all the attention and then they're getting the power and it's making the rules. And I'm like, yeah, but what did we do with kids who had tantrums when I was a kid? They got timeouts. Give those
yeah,
bitches timeouts. Like, why are
something.
we catering to them? Like,
Yeah.
you
And it
know?
and it's almost like you become it's almost like, how vocal they are sort of covers for the fact of how small they are.
Right.
right? They make up for that lack of size with how loud they are. And so you think that, the group is a lot bigger and it's a lot more popular, but it's not, you know?
Right.
Um,
Well, even like some of the stuff that was coming up during the last election and some of the opinions that are out there, they get overrepresented. And when you talk
mhm.
to people, like a lot of people that are Republican are not racist. They don't really care about trans people or anything. Like it's not representative of them, but everybody's like, well, if you're Republican, you're this. And I'm like, that you need to travel more. I mean, you need
Right.
to get out there and talk to people because it's not for those people. The reason why they vote that way isn't about that stuff. That's just what the fucking media is telling us. It is like there's more to it than that. And it pisses me off because like, yes, those things are a problem. And the people that have the money and the power that are pushing these laws into place for whatever fucking reason they're doing it, they need to be dealt with because it's bullshit. But I don't think that they're representative of Republicans. It's
I
just
would hope, you
yeah,
know?
like it's just not been my experience when talking to people who say they're Republican that they're, I have met some like legitimately racist people in my lifetime, but I don't even know what their political affiliation was, but I never asked. But I just
Right.
went, oh, you actually racist. I'm not sitting in the room with
Yeah.
you.
Again, I'll show myself out. You can go
Yeah,
be shitty over there, but I'm not going to be there. So I'll
right.
show myself
Like
out, right?
yeah,
Uh,
the worst one blew my mind. Like it took me years to just be like, did that really happen?
right?
Because there's subtle like stuff that's more based on like people not having exposure to things, and so they say dumb shit, but they don't mean it in a hateful way, and that's like a whole thing, where there's these biases that are just they just need more experience and exposure to things. And then there's this dude, he he asked me because I was from California and I was in Kentucky at the time, and he was like, "Well, have you ever, dated a black man or whatever?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was just like, "Oh, blah, 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 blah." And so I was like, and I asked him, I go, so he had a 3-year-old daughter, and I was like, if you had the choice to have your daughter worshipped by a man, just treated like how everybody should just absolutely be treated, and as a
Hmm.
black man, or by a man who beat her and raped her and was white, what would you choose? He said the white man. And I was like, I cannot be in a room with that person
Yeah.
because I'm going to go to jail. Like, I
Yeah.
cannot. Like, I just don't, I do not understand.
Yeah. That
Like,
doesn't even make sense. Like, there's no rationale, there's no reason behind it. It's just prejudice.
yeah. And
And
I think like he probably never met a black person. He just was saying whatever he grew up with, and he'd never been challenged, and it had just formed into this emotional thing because he felt threatened by some ideas are out there. I don't know, but like I just was like, I want to kidnap his kid and go. Like, I was
uh,
like, uh-oh. I was like 16 or something. It blew
oh
my
man,
mind. I was just
dude.
like, I grew up in an area that like the area it was like I was like one of the only white kids, and I just never I most of my friends online are white for some reason, but like in person I have very few white friends, and it's just where I live and the people I've connected with. And so I would feel uncomfortable living in a place where everybody looked the same because
Right.
I've never been around that. So I would be like, this is, you know, where's all the different humans?
Yeah. It, see, but I've always lived in a little less diverse, but still a somewhat diverse area, So I guess it would be, if it was a little bit more homogenized, I would be still kind of weirded out because it's not what I grew up with. It's not what I'm really adjusted to on
Yeah.
either way. But I hate to tell you this, my phone is going to die. We have been on the phone for so long. Like it's down to
How
like
like is
9%.
do you have a couple minutes to do the questions, or do you how long do you think it'll
Uh, yeah, we can do the questions. That sounds great.
Okay, let's do that.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
And I'm like, then you're a little bitch.
Yeah, dude. Like,
What the
why
fuck?
is I can. That's a whole nother podcast. Is
We will be recording again after my surgery. We have
uh,
more. I had a lot of fun and there's so
uh,
we basically planted the seeds for like I think more episodes in the future. So
absolutely. That's I feel the same way. You know, I'm incredibly pedantic, and I just go, or not pedantic, but tangential, and I just go all over the place all the time. So I always end up like, fuck, after we're done, we get off here. I'm gonna be like, shit, I should have talked about that. Oh, what about that? But
same. And I'll be like, oh,
yeah,
I didn't finish that thought and
uh,
this and that. And so we'll have
right,
to come back to it. But no,
yeah.
neither of us will remember what it was that we wanted to say.
See, but that's actually kind of fun because it's always like a first time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
See, it's like
Exactly.
I never remember any video game I play. So every time I play a video game, it's almost like it's a completely fresh experience every time.
Yeah.
But that also becomes kind of frustrating too, because it's like, shit, I already made these decisions and I thought I had never made them before. And you'll
Right.
notice that you made the same choices, the same patterns
I
every
won't
time.
remember that part, but I'll remember where the loot was. It's really, I am like, if you want to know where the loot is in a game and I've played it, I can take you there. It's weird.
See, I don't know, maybe it's an overstimulation thing. There's just so much going on that my brain can't like process it to the point where it remembers. But yeah, dude,
Yeah.
like I'll remember certain specific things, like big moments and stuff like that. And then I'll remember my sort of emotional experience of it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Do you
it's
visualize?
yes. Yes, I'm sitting here. I can't visualize spatially like buildings and stuff like that. Like it's really hard for me to do the type of spatial visualization. I'm not going to be an architect or a cartographer or anything like that.
Yeah. I
But
get like blips of visuals, but if I try like it's over here. If I try to look at it, it goes away. I can't,
really,
you know what I'm saying? That's like, yeah, so it's like I'm at the very bottom of the where I am there's almost no. So for me, like media, most visual media, I can't remember it, but I always remember my emotional experience of it.
see, and
So
I'm kind of similar. I can see things in my mind's eye, and certain things I can see very clearly, very strongly. I just sometimes lack the words to describe it, which that's almost worse. Like it's almost incredibly frustrating. But yeah,
yeah.
I remember I remember the sensory experience of things.
Yeah.
Not really like the step by step, play by play kind of thing.
Yeah. I'll be like, why I didn't like that movie? And they're like, why didn't you like it? I'm like, I don't know. I can't remember it. I just know it didn't feel good watching it. Like,
Yeah,
you know?
dude. Oh man, I if I forget to fill out like our add movies in on like my letterboxed, it I won't know, you know.
Yep.
And there's been and a lot of times I'll binge watch like 3 movies in a row, and I'll forget that I even saw them.
Yeah.
So later on, I'll be like, oh, dude, this movie sounds like it's cool as shit, and it's like, oh, I
Oh,
already
I've done
watched
that
it.
Netflix where I start to watch it and I'll be like, did I see this? And then I go look and it shows that I already watched it. I'm like, damn it.
Right. Exactly, dude. And like it's so bad because I can't unless I like right after I watch a movie, if I put it on my letterbox, I'll that's the only record I'll have of it. Because some
Yeah.
apps don't keep your viewing history, and those
Right.
suck. They should have a viewing history for all of it, so I can be like. But
But
I've even scrolled through my viewing history on like Prime, and I'm like, I watched that. I don't remember watching that. Did I fall asleep? What the hell?
it's, yeah, yeah, I used to do Letterboxd and then I used a website called Sidereal. I don't know if it's still around. That was for TV shows. So I
Okay.
would track all my TV shows, but the last couple of years I haven't been doing that. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I always forget to fill out my letterbox because I never really use it anymore. So
Yeah.
it's almost like I forget to do the thing that helps me remember that I
Remember.
watched a thing. So
Yeah.
it's like a weird catch 22, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, it's movies to watch again later in the future, maybe.
yeah, but I'll get like 5 frames in or like 5 minutes in, and I'll be like, fuck, I've seen this, man. This movie sucked, dude. Like,
Yeah.
it's disappointing because it sounded so promising. And it's like, I already saw it and it was awful. And
Yeah.
so that kind of becomes a bummer, but oh
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
Hell, I mean, half the time, the fun of streaming is, scrolling through the movies that you don't want to watch, and sort of like the quest for a movie to watch actually becomes sort of the fun part.
Yeah,
But
I just give up and I watch some terrible Spanish drama, like, and then I'm like,
Do you watch shows that you don't like and you'll just keep watching them?
yeah, because I'm like I'm like crafting, so I'm
Oh
using
yeah.
it as stimuli, but then I get mad at it. And I'm like, I watched like Outlander, right? That's the
Okay.
one that's like it's like a romancy time travel thing, and there's all these plot holes. I'm literally yelling at the TV because they're so and like, but I still watched all 7 seasons that I have access to, and I'll probably watch the rest of it. And I'm
Uh,
like, why? I don't like it. Why am I doing this?
exactly, dude. I watched all of True Blood. I watched the entire series from like 10
Oh
minutes
my
in of the
God.
first
The books
episode.
are so much fun, and the only good thing about the TV show is the cook.
Oh yeah.
And the cook
God,
doesn't even exist in the books. So
yeah.
like that like his character is like awesome, and the rest of they made like they do this thing with TV shows. They did it with The Walking Dead until they brought Carol in as well, where the females have all the strength in the books, and then they make them demure or some bullshit for the TV show so that like men will watch it, and it ruins it for me. It makes me so angry. Like, and so the whole thing with the True Blood was like she was in this book, she's finding her strength and her independence and realizing that the relationships are not helping her, and all this stuff, and the whole fucking TV show is just codependent bullshit.
Dude,
And
that sounds
I
way
just
more interesting. That
yeah,
sounds way more
the books
interesting.
they were still trashy. There was still sex, and the dudes were sexy or whatever, but it was fun. I loved the books, and the TV series like just made everybody like yucky. There was no character development in the same way, and they took her strength away.
Yeah. Dude, first of all, I love Trashy. God, I love Trashy. Big fan. But dude, I hated it from like 10 minutes in, and I was just like,
Yeah,
this
like Bill was like
sucks.
he was like he had depth in the books. He was still an annoying little bitch, but like in the TV show, I was like, somebody needs to stake him like now.
Do it,
And everyone's like, oh,
please.
he's so hot. And I'm like,
Dude,
no.
as a hetero man, I can tell you that Skarsgård now, I get it, especially when he had like the long hair.
Yeah.
But but
Well, he's
Bill,
got like a facial charisma thing. It's not even about the bot. He does these things with his eyes and his face that are very like charismatic, where you could be like, I could wake up next to that, you know?
right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like you look at it and he has just like this sort of I don't know, like you were saying, yeah, he has a look, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And that's something you can't teach. And
Yep.
it makes him charming, you know? You're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I get it."
Yeah, yeah. But it's like it just yeah, I don't know. I like the whole Twilight series, like I remember when the very first book came out, it was at the bookstore, it was like in the youth section, everybody was talking about it. And I picked it up because I was really into the Anne Rice stuff. So people were like, "Oh, you might like this one." And I read like 2 paragraphs, and I must have just gotten lucky, but the paragraphs were very unhealthy and the writing was very poor. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to read this. And I didn't think anything about it. And then it blew up. And the thing is people were romanticizing these incredibly unhealthy relationship dynamics. And I
Yeah.
was like,
Fifty
the only,
Shades of Grey was the same way. Like
oh,
this is
well, and that was a
inappropriate.
fanfic based on Twilight, right? So like
Yes.
that, yeah, the only Twilight movie I actually sat through was the first one at a Mystery Science Theater event live with Weird Al and Patton Oswalt.
That sounds
And
metal. I would sit through
and
that.
they still couldn't make the movie not boring. It was funny, they were funny, but it was still like I really wish I'd seen a different movie, like
You have Patton Oswalt and Weird Al, and they're barely making it better. Like
right,
that's pretty
right.
bad, dude. Like,
It was rough. It was
see,
rough. So,
but I can tell you right now, I've only read a little Anne Rice, and I've never touched Twilight. But I can tell
Yeah.
you right now, if you're a fan of Anne Rice, I would not have recommended Twilight because that is
Right?
what the fuck,
Anne,
dude.
Anne Rice's writing was so the reason as a teenager I loved her writing because there was so much detail. She put all this research into the history of the area, the architecture of the area, the
Mhm.
culture of the area. And like so it wasn't just about the characters and the sex and the whatever. It was this other stuff and I loved it. I just would get lost in it. And plus the vampires were cool. So, if you ever want to watch, like the movies were awful, but the TV
Mhm.
series that's out now is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it in terms of like the relationship with the books, in terms of the vibe. The vibe
See,
is I don't care about the story being accurate. It's the vibe I care about.
okay. I know that there's problems with the film because they really tone down the queerness of it. And
That's like new complaints. That's
sure.
like looking back retrospectively. It was just awful. I
Yeah.
was angry when it was fucking Tom Cruise, like, oh, right, like whatever. They put all these big names in there. They took away like just yeah, I was so mad. And a lot of people are like, oh, I love those movies, and they can love them.
Yeah.
I hate them.
See, that's the thing.
Hate them.
See, I see so many people, especially on like horror Twitter, that just gush about movies that they love, and I fucking hated. I was like, man, and I
Do
don't
you, do
say
you
a
ever get
damn thing.
people that like act like you're attacking them, even though you're like, you can have your opinion, mine is this opinion. And they're like, ha 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 ha. Ha."
No, because I either won't say a thing, I'll just like heart it and move on. You know,
Yeah.
I don't need to rain on their parade. Or if I want to give them engagement, or if I feel like saying something, I'll be like, this movie didn't really do it for me, but I'm glad that y'all like it. You know, this movie needs to have fans or whatever. And
Yeah.
I've never really
It's
gotten any pushback about it.
yeah.
Maybe I'm
I
just
on the
lucky.
internet, I don't say much on the internet in general. Like I don't like but back in the day before internet when you would be in the room with somebody and have a conversation, you like the band Cake? Are you familiar with the band Cake?
I
Um,
know of them. I've
I'm
probably
not a
heard them.
fan. I'm
Okay.
not personally a fan. They were very big for a while, and I. His battery died. Well, we will be finishing that conversation. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out, and thank you to A Tower for hanging out, though he's not going to see this until later. And yeah.
Thank you for hanging out and listening. A huge thank you to my patrons. I could not do this without you. Want to support my creative chaos and get access to exclusive content? Check out my Patreon. Have questions and/or interested in joining me for a conversation? Email me.